Good morning, everybody. It's Peter here from AJS, and it's my delight to once again step into someone's workshop somewhere around Australia. And this week we're going to sunny Brisbane. Well, maybe not so sunny, but anyway, it's sunny because the person in the room is extra sunny. And let's welcome this morning Kahni Burrows. Welcome, Kahni.
Hey, everyone.
Great to have you back on board, Kahni. And today we're getting into creating personalised rings using CAD software, in particular Fusion 360. Would you like to elaborate a little bit more about what we're going to get up to?
Yeah, look, often one of the things that people get asked most is, oh, can you engrave something on the inside of that? And I don't know about anyone else, but my engraving really sucks. I shouldn't be allowed anywhere near any of those sorts of tools. My handwriting sucks, let alone my engraving. So one of the really big things about the Fusion 360 software is it allows you to put writing, details, pictures even on the outside and the inside of rings without you having to worry too much. Another good thing is that once you've designed your ring, it's just a really simple matter to go back in to the file and then just change the text. So if you go, oh, I've got the wrong name on there, that shouldn't be Susanna and Christopher, it should be Susanna and Craig. You just quickly go back into the file and just change the text out and go, oh, there it is. That was so much easier. Or people go, I want one just like that, but with my sister's name on it. You go, okay. And it's very, very quickly, as opposed to having to whack out all the tools again and off you go. So we're going to be looking at doing engraving, well, putting text or whatever on the outside of rings, on the inside of rings. So the outside and inside, just like this guy, a little here, which I've got something very naff, like I will love you forever. Like a little wedding ring, which is just pretty much like that. So we're going to look at doing inside and outside of those band types. And then we're going to look at doing, I know that I've had requests for talking about developing signet rings, and this is a really useful one because you can put whatever you want on the front of your signet ring. You can put initials, you can put a logo, you can put anything pretty much you want. So we're going to look at how to actually do a signet ring with a raised design so that you can fill in the back with enamel, which is a pretty useful sort of a thing that you can use resin, you can use enamel, or you can just leave it as a raised design.
That one looks pretty impressive, Kahni.
Ooh, that was a Metallica one. Woo!
But the beauty of it is your showroom is actually just your digital files of things you can offer, or if someone comes up with something, and then you do it. So
absolutely, and hopefully what we'll look at today is also how you can use Fusion 360 to do a render and show the customer this is pretty much what it's going to look like. And in fact, if you look at it on Facebook, if you see a lot of the images say, oh, buy our lovely custom charms and stuff like that, a lot of them have a white background and a really clear image. Usually those are renders. Those aren't the finished article. So often worthwhile, just a point to the wise, sometimes just getting in contact and saying, can I have a picture of what the actual item looks like, not the nice render that you put up there? So we'll have a little look at just so people can get an idea.
Now, this Fusion 360, that's free software, is it, Kahni?
You can get it free for small businesses and for education purposes. Even if you decide that you want to go into it just and use it for everything, I think it's something like $500 a year, which is a lot less than the big boys in the jewelry industry charge per year. So they're thousands.
Well, if you're using it as a tool of trade, that's a good investment, isn't it?
Absolutely, and to be honest, it's a lot more flexible. You can use it to design a whole bunch of stuff, not just have standard ring forms, which is another downfall of some of the other jewelry design softwares. They're really great at just making a ring with 50,000 diamonds. They don't really open it itself up to a lot of the other design possibilities. Whereas this, you can build a ring, but you can also build like a piece of kitchen material or something. You can use it for just about anything. It's the way of the future, kids.
Indeed. Okay, what are we getting up to first then?
Okay, well, first we're just going to show just a simple band ring, and we're going to put show how we put the design on the outside, and then how we're going to put a design on the inside. So I'll just open up Fusion 360. So go into sharing screen. There's my Fusion 360. Okay. And hopefully everyone can see that?
No.
No. No.
Let's give it another whirl.
Let's give it another whirl. Absolutely. Select the window. Would you like to share? And let's try that.
Now we're cooking, Kahni.
Now we're cooking. Absolutely. Oh, technology has let us down again. Okay, so what we've got is pretty much, this is what you see the moment that you open up your Fusion 360. So nothing's happening on the screen, and it gives us this oblique view. So it's always easier just to marry it up like you're looking down on a tabletop. So usually the first thing I do is go over to our little selector here. So what this does is our little cube. So it just allows us to manipulate. So it's like looking obliquely at a tabletop. If we're looking down from our top view, so we're looking down on what we're going to be making. I tend to, because we're working on, well, rings, each of these big cubes is 1 centimetre. Obviously, each of these little guys in here is a millimetre. So often if you just bring up the magnification size so you can see what you're doing. Now, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make the profile of our ring. So if we're looking down at our ring, obviously it's just going to look like a circle. So that's where we're going to start. We go up here to where it says creating a sketch. So we're going to make our circle. It always asks what plane we want it on. Now, because we're actually looking from the top, we just want this one. So just click on that little guy and it all goes away. You'll get this great big sketch palette here. It says, what do you actually want to show? Don't worry too much about that for the moment. When you get into more complex designs, some of these you can click off because things get a little crowded. For the moment, if you just want to just click that off to one side and just get him out of the way. So we're going to draw our circle. Fortunately, here's one they prepared earlier. Now, this little guy in the center here represents the middle of the axis. So it's like the middle of the page. Always try and line your things up with your center there. It just makes life a lot easier when you're doing symmetrical things. So there's our center point. And now it wants us to go how far we want it. Now, if I'm making something for, say, a size K ring, then that's about a 15.6 millimeter diameter. Often it's easier just to start with something useful, like maybe a 16 or an 18, and you can scale it up or down later. So let's say that we're making a ring with an 18 millimeter inside diameter. So let's click there. And now we're going to think about the thickness. So let's say that we're going to have a 1 millimeter thick band. We can make it as thick as we want. There's 2 ways we can do it. We can either draw a circle out, and there's now 20 millimeters. So that's our 18 millimeters with 1 millimeter either side, and we can do it that way. Another way, if I just escape from that, is we can actually use this offset. So if we click on there, it allows us to just stick another circle around the outside. So that can quickly say we want it 1 mil. If we want a thinner ring, for whatever reason, we can make it like, say, 0.6. We just enter it in here. So if I made that, or 0.8, I want a fairly thin band, something like that. If I want a great big hua, thick ring, like it's really quite chunky, I could maybe make that 1.2 or something like that, or 1.5 if you want something massively chunky, or you're making it for somebody who likes a really big chunky ring, but they'd also need really big gaps between their fingers. So let's just make that 1.0. As I said, either way, you're going to get exactly the same thing. Now you'll see it gives you a little dialog box here just saying 1.0. That's like a little dimensional reminder. You don't really have to worry too much about that. If it's distracting, like you really find it a pain in the bum, just go in here where it says show dimensions, and if you click it, it'll vanish. But either way, it's not going to do anything to your design. It's just going to sit there. Okay, now we're going to actually make our ring. So sometimes best just to sort of like offset it to one side like that so you can see what you're doing. We're going to finish our sketch on that plane because nothing else is going to happen there. Now we're going to come to extrude. So we're just going to take our profile, because this is the bit we want to actually bring up. Let's say that I want a 4 millimeter wide band, something like that. We can just put the 4 in there and it will automatically do it for us. Alternatively, if you're just not too sure exactly how wide you want it, what you can do is just click on your profile and then just kind of just fiddle around and go, yeah, I like the look of that, or that's about far enough. Yeah, that's pretty good. Or you can just click in a number. So I'm going to just go for a 4.0 ring. There we go. And we go, okay, there's our ring. Now let's get down to the fun stuff. So here's our basic band. We're going to put like round off the edges and stuff like that later. But for the moment, we just want to have something that we can play with. The way that we've actually got in Fusion 360, there's a couple of different ways of doing text. So I'm going to go with the easiest. Now, what we've got in here, if you go into the Create menu once you've shut down your sketch dialog, is a little tool called the embossing tool. Now, that's a relatively new thing that they've had. They've only had that for like about a year. And it is massively useful, because the old way that we used to have to do it was we actually had to do it like sheet metal and unwind it and do a whole lot of far more complicated things. Now it's pretty easy peasy. The way that it works is you actually have to have another surface on which to do your sketch. So it's like a piece of paper that it uses for a reference. So what we're going to do is we're going to create something which is going to be in the plane in front of this bit of the ring. What the program will do is when you hit the emboss, it's going to wrap it around the face of whatever it is that you select. So in this case, we're going to do the front face, which will be fine. So we're going to come down, looking at it from the top again. We're going to create another plane. So that's pretty much going to be like a piece of paper that we're going to draw our sketch or our text on. So going to this construct one, we're going to hit offset plane. Now it says, which basic plane do you want? So what we're doing is creating a plane which will be parallel to one of the 3 little orthographic guides we've got here. Now, because we're going to be working on the front face of our ring, let's go with that one. And now we're going to pull it down until, if we look at the top view there, just so it's just sitting there in front. It doesn't have to line up particularly with anything, just so as long as it's actually going to be in front there. So hit OK. And there's our little plane hovering in front of our ring. Sometimes it's useful just to make this a little bigger, just particularly if you're not used to working at what plane it's looking at. This way it puts it more in your head that this is what we've got. We've actually got like a sheet of paper in front of our ring. So there we go. We'll pop him just there. Now we have to create another sketch that we're going to do our text on. And we're going to put it on this plane here. So it's really important that we actually indicate that plane when we do our sketch. That's what it'll do, is it will default to whatever it is that we've been using up to now, and it gets a little grumpy. So back to a sketch group, and we want it to be there, and you'll see it just flicks through it. Note the plane vanishes. If you go, oh, I'm not 100% sure I like that, you can just whack the plane back in by coming to this construction panel and just opening up the plane. If you don't really care, you can just click it off. There's our little eyeball, turn it on, turn it off. Just have to remember that it's actually not drawing on the ring itself. It's actually on this invisible plane that we've got here. I might just leave it on just so people can see what's happening. Now, the next bit is we're going to create text. So back into our create. So these are all the things that you can do when you're in the sketch mode. So here's our text. We're going to go, yay, we want to do text. It gives you an option of you can do it in a straight line or you can put it on a path. So if you actually had like a wiggly line that you wanted to do somewhere, then you'd do your wiggly line as your sketch and then you'd have your text on that. But for the moment, we're just going to go off a straight line. So we're going to go with one of those. Pop him off to one side. This little guy here, provides like a box that we can do. Now, it's pretty important that you make it, maybe you can make it overly much larger than what you're going to need, because if you make it too small, it has a tendency to get a little bit more bolshy, and I'll show you what I mean. So we're just going to put our little guy in through here. We're going to make it like that. Try and keep it symmetrical if you can, which is what that little guy is there and there. There we go. There we go. That's pretty happy. Or it would be if I actually clicked on it. There we go. Now it gives us this little dialog box in here. Let's move him over. So it pops a sample text in there. There's a choice of fonts that you can use. So like there's a whole world of fonts which are all through here, just like any Word document or any other product that you've probably seen known to mankind. I'm just going to use, strange enough, Comic Sans, which is a much maligned font. Let me tell you, people go, "Oh my God, Comic Sans!" I think it's second only to Wingdings for people's contempt. But
people would have scoffed the minute you said Comic Sans.
They would have gone, "Oh my God, Comic Sans!" But I think it's really quite a nice, gentle one. But I mean, you can use anything, and we'll show how you can just change the font pretty easily. Now, the 2 millimeters isn't too bad. You can change where in that text box it is, but keep in mind, where it is here, looking at in this little box, is pretty much how it's going to impress on the ring. So if I were to actually put this over here, it would tend to send it off away from the center of the ring. If I put it up here, it would be right near the top of the ring surface. So pretty much what you see is what you get. So if we keep it nice and centered, there we go. It's not too bad. But now let's put in our sample text. Now what you're going to see is it really doesn't matter if it actually overruns the end of the ring. So let's put something nauseating in there. Let's say, let's try, shall I compare thee, or something like that.
Gee, I was wondering what you're going to type. I didn't expect Shakespeare.
Oh, there you go. A little bit of Shakespeare. I didn't mention that little honest degree in medieval lit that I had. There we go. Medieval Renaissance lit. Very exciting. So we've got our shall I compare thee. You can see how it runs over the side here. We're not worried because remember, it's going to wrap around. So if we're pretty happy with that, we just hit OK. There's our shall I compare thee. And that's pretty much all we're going to do with that. So we go, there it is. And we can see how it's sitting on that plane there in front of the ring, not actually on the ring itself. Now, this is where we're going to use the fancy new emboss tool, which we're really happy with. It makes life a lot faster. So there's our emboss, and it says, what profile do you want? So we go, okay, I want that guy. Shall I compare thee? It's going to say, what faces do you want? And I said, well, we want it on the front face of this ring. So we want it on that outside surface. Now, often if it's a really long thing, it's going to appear in here as a little computing thing. It'll take a while to process. Just hang in there. If it doesn't give you an error message, everything's good. Now, for depth, I often tend to go with a 4 millimeter or 0.4 millimeter into a 1 millimeter surface. It doesn't compromise the integrity of the surface at all. It doesn't make the ring weaker, but it's still deep enough to actually be visible. And it's certainly deep enough if you actually want to inlay an enamel or something on the inside of that, it'll hold it enough. If you keep in mind that these are going to be coming off a 3D printer in a wax before they're lost wax cast. Now, there will be, depending upon the company that you use, there will always be very fine lines, which are the result of the printing process. If you make this depth too small, let's say, I only want it to be about 0.1, chances are that when you come to clean up the ring, once you've got it cast and you're taking off those production marks, those striations, which are from the printing, chances are you're going to go down so deep to get rid of those that you might well be taking out a lot of the detail and the depth out of the engraving. So keep in mind, a little bit deeper is not a bad thing. So yes, so negative 0.4 is usually a good way to go. And then we hit OK. And And it has a little think, has a little computing thing. And let's just get rid of that plane. He's in the way of our stuff. And there we go. It's a little hard to see there. So there's our little shall I compare there. You can see it's wrapped around the ring. Now, if we end up wanting to change the text or say, you know what, I actually want the entire thing. I want the whole, shall I compare thee to a summer's day? I wonder if I can fit that. So you can edit this by saying, oh, okay, that's all well and good. There's our ring. You know, I want to write something different. Just go back into here, right click onto your sketch, that little sketch guy that we just did. That's where we've actually got our text. We go edit the sketch, and then we click on the text and go edit the text. Now, shall I compare thee? Now, this is where things can get a little bulky if you've got difficulties with the length of this. Now, to a, that's going to go, oh no, Summers, it's getting a little tight. And then it does that, which is going to be
to the OCD amongst us, you've got an extra space after compare, I think.
Oh, I do. Oh, thank you so much for noting that. There we go, because I would have noted that eventually and gone, ah. And the good thing is we can just change that. Now, we might need to change the size of the font just to fit it all in. So let's see if a 1.6 does the job. Yes, it does. So we can go, okay, let's go with that. And we hit OK. We finish our sketch and it will hopefully recompute. And shall I compare thee to a summer's day? So it's got more of it on there. Now, if you actually want more spacing in between, you can go back into your edit function. So edit, oh, there we go. And we're looking at the back of it. It's not terribly useful. So back around to the front and edit our text. And what we can do is go, well, you know, character spacing, you can actually change the character spacing in here. So to make that like an extra 0.4 or something, it's almost negligible. You're not really going to notice it that much. As you make it bigger, it does make a bigger change. You just be careful, because sometimes if you actually end up with one letter overlapping on the other, it's going to give you a big fat error message. So error messages that turn up, let's see if we can actually make it do that, although I'd rather not. So actually, what do we do for time? No, actually, how about we do that in another? If people are really worried about that, if they have that problem, just going to get in contact with me and we can talk about it, because we need to crack on. I've just realised. Sorry about that. Cool. So let it do that. Ta-da! Now let's say we go, yeah, okay, it's outside. That's all lovely. Now we're just going to do our fillet, make that nice and round the outside, and we just push that in a little bit. There we go. We can make it like that. We go, okay. And if we want to round off the inside edge, we can select those little bits, and there we go. We've rounded that off, and we've got our ring. Ta-da.
Great.
Now, that's the outside of it. Now, if we want to do something on the inside, let's say we wanted to put like our hallmark, or we wanted to write the people's name or something, what we can do is we can do the same thing that we did just before. We're going to set up another plane, and we're going to put it somewhere near the back there. So construct another plane. There's our offset plane. Once again, we're using the one which is going to be parallel to the front. So often it's easiest to tilt it. And we're just going to say, yeah, we want it to be around about, yeah, it doesn't really matter. Just remember that the closer it is to the face that it's going to be produced on, the less likely you are to get error messages. So I mean, in theory, I can actually just put it here and it will project it back to here. But sometimes you get a a little bit of trouble with the program. It tends to go, oh, I really don't like doing that. It's going to give me overruns between letters and stuff like that. So often the best rule of thumb is try and get it relatively close to the face you want. That's close enough. So we go, okay, and we stretch it out a little bit, and we're going to pop something in there. There we go. And once again, it doesn't matter just how big that is. See how it's actually giving me a second plane though. And you can see it there. One little trick is because sometimes it's a little hard to see what's going on, particularly once we actually start to put our sketch on that plane. What we can do is we can pretty much just cut away this front of the ring by using this little thing. It's called a section analysis. It allows you to look at the cross section of whatever you're making. In this case, we're going to exploit it. Now it says what face. So we actually want to just cut through this way. Ta-da! And there we are. It also shows us how deep this engraving is on the outside. So if you want to check that, often good to whack back into that analysis. Now, if we're sick of looking at the analysis, want to see what the ring looks like, we just turn analysis off and there it is back again. But when you're actually putting text down, you actually want to see what's happening inside because it has a tendency to want to line up to this front position. Normally what would happen is you'd be trying to work through that and go, yuck. So create our sketch. So create a sketch and we want it on that plane. That's all lovely. Same as we did before. There's our text. We want to say same deal as we did before. We won't put too much on the inside here. Let's say that we're just going to put a couple of names. So let's say we're going to write Jan. And where's my ampersand? Alan, there we go. Let's say something like that. So there's a little shout out to my former editor, Jacaranda Wiley. I'm sure she'll be quite pleased. So we'll just hit an OK. Let's hope that's all going to go OK. Pop that there. And finish our sketch. So all ready to go. We're just going to do our emboss. So I'm going to do our emboss, sketch profile, and then we select the face. So we want to be on that inside face. It's going to do its little computation. And it goes, yeah, that's pretty happy. Once again at the -4. I know it looks very, very messy here, but once we actually hit OK, all that other stuff's just gonna run away. And let's bring our ring back. There we go. So we've got Jan and Alan on the inside. We could just as easily have put our maker's mark or our quality stamp, so our 925 or whatever, and we can just poke that in like that. There's our writing on the outside. There's our writing on the inside. Now let's see what it would actually look like in, say, gold. And this is where we can use a quick render. So in design, once we've got this, of course, don't forget to save it. So I'm just going to save this as, it's going to call that demo ring. I think, what's the date today? The 30th? 30th of the 9th. There we go. Often I tend to date mine just so I remember what on earth I'm doing. So every time you save this, it puts less pressure on the program. So it's not holding it just in temporary memory. So once you actually save it, it just means that it's got something to refer to. Right, now we're going to render this. So the render. Come back here. There we go. Render. Lovely. Now, this looks pretty nondescript. So what we can do is it's got a grey background and it's got a default which says this is like a dull polished steel or something. So we go into our setup. We want to change the material. It's going to give us a bunch here. So you can make these ceramic, electronics, fabrics, flooring, glass. So obviously these are made for this program was originally made for architectural processes, as you can tell. In this case, we're using it for our own nefarious purposes. So we're going into metal. Let's see what metals it's going to give us. So it's got all those, aluminium, all of those little guys. And I think we had gold. Have we got a polished gold? Have a little think about it. Just drag it over there. It's now got a gold sort of a color. It's not too fantastic, but it won't be yet. We're going to change the background color. Instead of being gray, how about we change it to that glistening white, which a lot of the little Facebook page ads tend to have. So apply that. Ooh, okay. Now we can also do things like change the ground plane and put in reflections and all sorts of stuff. You can change the roughness of the ground. We're not going to worry too much about that. We're just going to leave it as white. Now, what we can do, this is still not actually, how we say, rendered. These are the defaults. So now we do an in-canvas render. So what it's doing is it's actually doing thousands of calculations to work out where the light's coming from and how the light will actually strike that surface. Mm. So by the time it gets to final, that's pretty much what it looks like. And saying, so that's what your ring will look like. You can go to set modes, like there's the home, which gives you that orthographic look. It will have to recalculate every time. So what you see is it will disintegrate and then reform. So now it does its recalculation based on the angle that you're looking at it. And it will give you a little picky. So because of the way that we've done this, it's got a lot of little iterations. You can see here, it's telling you how many different iterations it's doing. So this gives you an indication of how many projected rays it's actually putting down and how it's perceived by the viewer. So it's an interesting exercise in physics, which nobody really has to worry about, but there it is.
Looking good, Kahni. Kahni, I've just got a question from Megan.
Yeah.
She says, thanks for this. I recently bought a printer for making automotive parts. I was hoping I could get a filament for lost wax casting. Is there a filament you would recommend?
Now, I know that you can actually get a wax filament, but I'm trying. I will, if they would like to get in contact with me, I'm trying to remember which company it was that made it, and there's only some 3D printers which will use it, but there certainly is wax filament out there which can be then, once you print it off, it can then be sent off for lost wax casting. I know that they were working on some filaments which are like the castable resins, like a lot of the liquid resin printers use. They can be patchy, but the wax filament ones do tend to work out fairly well. So I can look up where I saw that and send the details on if she'd like to get in contact.
Yeah, so Kahni's contact details, Megan, are in the comment section, so just go and get in touch with her there. That'd be great.
Yep.
So thanks for the question.
And we finished looking at that little guy. So, ta-da! Now let's work on something a little bit more complicated. So let's say we've got somebody who says, you know, I want a signet ring which has got my company logo on it, or something like that, or with like the Metallica symbol, like in the one that I had before. So let's just leave this little guy here. Oh, the good thing is that now we can also take a photo of that. So capture the image, and you can just save that. So demo ring, we can save that anywhere that we want. Oh yes, go on, good on you.
So you could then use that image on your website to say you can buy this one if you want. You
can use, yeah, or on your Facebook page, pretending that it's actually a made item, which is what a lot of these guys do. Really, really annoying. Yes, so say, oh, look at that. Ooh, and you go, yeah, that's actually a render. After a while, you get to spot them, because this is only like a fairly basic rendering machine that they have in here. Some of the more high-priced jewelry systems have very fancy ones. You can still spot them. They just look a little too clean. They just look a little schmick. Now you notice that it's made this gold in our vision here. So sometimes once you've actually set the material, it will carry that through into the basic design. As I said, easy thing now. If we decide that Jan's broken up with Alan and wants to get together with somebody else, it's just a matter of going into the text here and just swapping out poor old Alan with, I don't know, Fritz or Ruben or something very fancy, like she runs off with the Cabana boy. Now, let's have a look at doing a signet ring. So you just open up a new project. Here we go. So we start on the top profile again. We draw our ring out. We're using sketch. We want it on this plane. We start with a circle. And let's just zoom in a bit. Let's say that we know it's going to be quite a chunky ring. Let's say that's going to be a 20 millimeter. Once again, just checking out the diameters that you would have for your sizing. So you can make a 15.6, you can make 18.2. Don't forget to check the table of sizing once you've actually sized the customer's finger. But I'm just going to make it just around 20 just to make it easier. We want it to be 1 millimeter band. Once again, you can make it 2 millimeters. You can make it as thick as you want, but I'm just going to go with 1. I can either use the offset tool, which we used before, or we can just go in and just draw in another circle that's a millimeter away. All good. Now we're looking at the side of our signet ring. Now we know that we're going to end up with a little table on the top. Now that's going to be a straight line. So let's say we want it to be, let's say we know we want it to be about 1 centimeter across. So we pop that in. So there's our 5 and our 5. So make sure it's symmetrical. If you're really worried about it, just do half of it and then just mirror it across. So now we're going to need to join that table down to here, because remember we're looking at the side profile of our signet ring. We can go into create. We're going to use a 3-point arc that tends to give us a really nice sort of a shape. So we're just going to, there's our starting point, and we're going to shape it down to here. Now, let's say I want it to be about there. So there's our bonding point. And we do the same thing over here. Or alternatively, what we could also do, I can either draw it again here, or I could use this mirror function. And we could say, I want that to be mirrored over to here. And so I want it to go through that middle axis. So let's see if it's going to let us do it. There's our mirror line, that one. And it will just pop it into position for you. So that's another way of doing it.
So that'll guarantee you've got your symmetry.
Guaranteed that it's symmetrical. So you can just work on one side and mirror the whole thing over, or you can just draw it in. It's not a biggie. Now, we'll give you all these little guys in here. What this is, these are all constraints. So this program will try and be as helpful as it can be to you. What it's saying is, I have mirrored all of these little guys in through here. So these are mirrored, that's mirrored, that point is mirrored. So it means if I change something here, it will change something over here, which isn't such a big problem. Now, we also know that we don't want this to be solid silver when we make it, or metal. I mean, you can if you want it to be a really big chunky bugger, but remember that the bigger these top surfaces are, the more likely it is to want to try and rotate, and the harder it is to wear. So often we want to hollow out that interior surface. This is where our offset tool comes in handy again. So we want it to do that and that. And we actually want it to be on the inside. So we flip it. There we go. And let's say we want it to also be that 1 millimeter, that -1 millimeter again. Now the minus just means it's internal or going inwards. The plus means it's going outwards. So if I were to flip that, you'll notice it becomes a positive value, and that would try and set down a curve outside. That's what I wanted. Hit Control Z. There we go. Go away. Let's try that again. So offset, want that guy and that guy, and flip it to the inside. There we go. And we go, okay. So we've got all these little lines in through here. We know the only ones that we're really going to want. So if I took a cross section through my signet ring, I wouldn't want like this layer of silver here and another layer of silver here with this hollow in between, simply because once we actually put that into the casting, it's going to be solid. So what we'll do is we'll just get rid of that little guy in through there when we do our rotation. So we don't have to get rid of it. You just need to be aware of the fact that it's there for when we actually rotate through. I might just cut this little bit out though, just to make life easier. We're not actually going to use this in our rotation, which I'm going to show you in a minute. So escape, and we're all pretty happy with that sketch so far. There's my side view pretty much. So we're going to have this outside shape, and interior, we're just going to have the hole in like this. So we're going to use something called the Revolve Tool. Now this is going to look really weird because it's going to make like a great big like solid 3D object out of it. So we select the profile we want. Now we want this guy to be rotated. We also want that guy. Now here's another thing about this tool. It wants to revolve around an axis. So when it wants to revolve this shape, so see how that goes all the way over both halves. What it will try and do is revolve through itself, and it's going to get very grumpy. Now you can get around this by just rotating it through 180 degrees rather than through a full rotation, but it's often easier just to make your life easier. Go back into your profile sketch, edit your sketch, and just stick a line down the center and go, there we go, right through there. We're happy with that, and finish the sketch. So if we give ourselves just a line in through there that we're going to use as our axis, now when we come to do a revolution, we can just make it take half the design and just take that. So that's the bit we're going to rotate. We're going to say the axis. So that's that big line we've just used there. And you'll see we get this great big globby little 3D thing. So it gives you this preview and we go, oh, look, it's an egg with a flat top. But that's what we want on the top of our surface. We go, okay. Oh, we think, what are we going to do with that? Now, the good thing is now we can punch our hole through. So we go back and show our sketch. We're going to extrude a great big gap. Now, we're going to need both halves of these. So we're looking down on that. We want to remove this section. So the way that we do that is we're actually going to extrude like a great big tube through it. We wanted to do it through both sides, so symmetrically. And we're just going to drag that up. Now, see how it gave us the option here of cut. That's what we're doing. We're basically cutting a big hole right through the middle of this. We can extend it as far as we want. We actually want it to go past the side of our ring. So that's what it's done. So as I go down through here, you can see that's what it's doing. And we just go, okay. Let's a little think about it. And now we're up to that. Let's just get the origin out of the way and let's just turn those sketches off because they're a pain to look at. So that's what we've got so far. So that looks pretty much like a signet ring. It doesn't look like a very comfortable one though. So if we look at it from the side, we go, yeah, you know, don't like that curve. Not a big fan. So what we're going to do is we're going to train that curve. So we want something like a little bit more elegant in through here. At least we don't want this big chunky bit here and then this bit here. So we're going to do a sketch. What a surprise. Everything is done with sketches. Now, the good thing is that because we're going to use these as cutting lines, we can just use the central face. We don't have to set up an offset plane or anything like that. We're going to say, okay, you know what? I want the band at the back to be about 4 millimeters. So that's going to be 2 millimeters either side. Or we could go for a great big chunky one. Since it's going to be a chunky ring, let's say that we want it to be a nice thick 6 millimeter back here. So that's 3 millimeters either side. Let's draw a bit of a line in through here. We're going to take it to about there. Where should we take it to? Let's take it to about there. That looks okay. And escape. And now we're going to, we can use an arc or we could use our spline curve. Let's just use the 3-point arc. It's nice and simple. We want it to go there. I want it to come pretty much past that shoulder. I'm going to recenter this. So I want it to go past there. And that connects up. That doesn't look too bad. I want it to do this on both sides. So I'm going to mirror that line and that line. And I want it to be over that line. And you'll see it's popped up and we're happy with that. We get out of our sketch. Once again, our little mirror dialogues turn up. You'll see the sketch has suddenly vanished again. You'll go, oh no, now what am I going to do? Yeah, just come back over here and turn it back on. It does this all the time. It has a tendency that once you've been working on something, when you come back out of the sketch, it just turns it off. And we go, well, that's just great, isn't it? Now we're going to split our body. So we want this great big chunky ring to be split by these little guys in through here. Now what it does is it extends everything and extends it through the ring as well. So we go, okay, oh, that doesn't seem to be any different. But if we look into our bodies over here, you'll see we've got these extra bodies. I've got one body down here. I've got another body up there. And that's the shape that we actually want. So what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of these little guys. Now, rather than hit delete, you can do that, but it can set up some problems later on if you're going to do something more complicated on the top. So often the easiest thing to do is we just click on that and we remove it altogether. So we can't recall that unless we do the Control Z and go back, 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 back. Now, what's the other bit? We want to keep that. Don't remove that. And let's remove that. So we're just going to winnow these guys off, turn off our sketches. And that's pretty good. Like, yeah, we're pretty happy with that. So you'll see there's the interior of our ring. That's not too bad. And because we know how to do our writing now, we can just put our little text on the back there. We can write whatever we want. But here's the important bit we want. Now we want to put something fancy on the top. So another sketch. Let's do that as another sketch. What we can do is we can put text in here if we wish, or let's say I wanted to put a logo on there. Let's say I'm going to put my KB Planet Pickle logo on the top here. So that's an SVG. Now, if you don't have an SVG, so that's a vector file, which is like a mathematically generated sketch. If you don't have one of those, you've got a JPEG. You can use a program like Convertio to turn a JPEG into an SVG file. So when we go into Insert, SVG, and what it's going to do is say, well, where do you want that file from? Mine's hiding in here in my iCloud. And I want that one. And it's going to go, where do you want that? And we can say, here, I want that on the top. So it's set up automatically, opened up a sketch for that. Now there's my logo. You can see it's way too big. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it in, make it a little smaller, and then I'm just going to fiddle around with it a bit. And we've got this little guy in through here, and make it smaller again. And this little white guy is the positioning in there. Let's say I want that. There we go. And that looks okay. I might just drop him down just a little bit more. I didn't really design this logo very well at all. There we go. And we go, yeah, that'll do. And that's okay. Now, while we're here in the sketch, see how it's gone into this green thing? It means it's now ready to do stuff with. I might put a little rim here. So if I'm going to make it like that Metallica ring, which I showed at the beginning, I'm going to need a little rim here if I want to enamel in through here. So what we're going to do is, because we're still in sketch mode, I can just make another little circle and center it in there. Go to the outside like that and do another little circle just in there, and they will be my captures. So I'll go finish the sketch. Once again, the sketches have vanished because they're revolting. We think that we can't see them, and now we're going to extrude those. So I can take that up and that. And I can't forget these little guys in here, which I often do. Now, I have a choice. What we can do is we could decide, you know, I'm going to go up, come up about there. Let's see what that looks like. And see, it gives the option to join. So what that's doing is saying, I'm going to join it onto the body you've already got. 0.7 isn't bad. You have to have a look and see, do I like the look of that? Or would I prefer to do something else? And then what we do is we backfill all of these recessed bits with whatever color we want and then sand it back. So we can do that. Or it may well be that we don't want to actually do an enamel. We just want to inlay it a bit. So what we can do is engrave it into the top. So when we go back to our edit feature, if we want to change it, what we can do is we can go back and recess everything back just a little, back to our minus 0.4 perhaps, which is usually my default, my go-to. And let's see if it's going to do that now. We should actually be doing cut and okay. And what it does is it recesses it there. So I can actually fill this little gap in here and this little gap in here with enamel. So I'm going to have silver here and say black enamel into these little bits here. So it's up to you which way that you do it. Now, if we're a little unsure as to how that's actually affected the profile, what we're going to do is go in and we're going to use our analysis tool again. So inspect, section analysis. We want to look through our cross section, and that tells me that this is how thick the ring is. And if we have a little squiz there, it tells me that we've still got a fair bit of metal in through here, not enough to really cause much of a problem. So it's often a good idea just to do these. If you actually see that there's holes in through here, or that there's a couple of things crossing over each other, this is where you'll pick them up. So it's not a bad idea to have section analysis on a few different planes. So just have a little look. We go, yeah, that's okay. If you're not going to use it again, you can just hit cancel and it will just go away and not set up a file. So there's our ring with our little signet on the top. That's with our SVG. Or I could just as easily, rather than have this as an SVG, if I want to go in here and then just say, I just want the initials, we can do what we did before. We just open up the sketch. We just open up this, create, we go down into text, and we go through the process that we did before when we actually had it open as a sketch. And that's pretty much it. So it's a lot simpler. And now we can, of course, go through and round off all of our corners with our fillet tool like we did with our other ring. And if we want to actually do a little generation, we can do a little quick render. Now, what I should mention is that if you want to just send these straight to a foundry rather than actually printing them off yourself, which most people will be doing, what we'll do is we might do this with the demo ring because this guy will be faster. What we do is we make sure that we've saved it and we go, yep, that's saved. And then what we're going to do is we're going to export it, and we're going to export this as an STL file. So these STL are 3D generation files, and these run things like CNC machines and 3D printers, which is what the foundry is going to use in order to print off your design. So we do an export. It's going to give you a dialog saying, this is what I'm doing. You'll watch the little blue bar of death slowly crawl across the screen. Da, 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 da. It's taking its while. There's probably a few things happening.
To speak of time, how long does it take from once you send it to your foundry to get it back again?
Usually 4 working days.
Okay.
And
a lot generally of they just post it or deliver it back, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Now, once we've actually got this guy done, so it may take a little bit, depending upon the file. There you go. So that's already now as our file, demo ring 3009. I saved it to my other file. And now what we do is we'd open up something like, let's see if it's going to let me do this. Yeah, I don't want that. No, it's going to Paloise. I'm not sure if you can see the Paloise screen that I've got there.
No.
No. Okay, let's see if it's going to let me do something. Let's see if it lets me do that. Okay, we've got the Paloise screen up now.
We do.
We do. Okay, I'm using Paloise because they've actually got a system where you can actually upload the STL file and give an instant quote. It'll give you a help dialog here. We go in here. I know it saved it somewhere up here. So
it'll give a quote based on the file, will it?
It absolutely will. So somewhere in here, I'm not sure exactly where it went. So let's find where my demo ring went. 3009 is hiding in the iCloud drive. Really? Oh, that's because there it is. It's a different laptop. So it pops it over here. Let's say that I just want it printed to raw cast. So I'll do all the de-spruing. It's a ring. It has these subparts which allow you to add other bits and pieces to it. I just keep other alloy. Now, it gives you a wide variety of alloys here. So, you know, whichever you would like. I am probably going to go with sterling silver. There's sterling silver. We just want one of those printed off. Thanks very much. We go down to here and calculate the live price. So it'll do a little calculation based on the size. And it goes, okay, so that'll cost me $3.88 in sterling silver and $26 for the production. So that'll be $20 for the print on their 3D printer, which prints it off in wax, and $6 for the spruing onto the tree. And then, of course, plus GST. So $30 to produce. And all you've got to do then is hit submit and pay for it, and it'll enter their system. Lots of other places, Peter W. Beck, you simply send them the files and attachment to an email. And the same with ChemGold. And there's also Pure Casting. So there's so many casting houses around at the moment, and all of them are more than happy to accept an STL. It really is like the way everyone seems to be converting over to it. So that's pretty much the story.
That's amazing. So within the space of half an hour, you've generated your art and then placed your order, and then you get onto something else.
Absolutely. And it's all done. Of course, those are fairly simple designs. I have a tendency to do far more complex designs. So often things like dragons curled around rings and stuff like that. And I use a different program for that. So you can use a free program like Mudbox, or you can use ZBrush, which is very, very powerful, which is used by a lot of animators, but it really has a lovely interface for carving very natural shapes. And then you can import them into Fusion 360 as a file, and then you can actually bond them onto a ring. And that is a little bit more complicated, but these are just the basics to get started with.
Yeah. Now, Kahni, do you do any collaborative work with other jewelers where they don't get involved in the 3D design and all that sort of stuff, and they say, oh, Kahni, could you do that for me?
Absolutely. Always, always. When it's something like, oh my God, oh, I've got to do a jaguar. I don't know what a jaguar looks like. They want this ring with this jaguar head. Oh, yeah, it's okay. And what you do then is you actually do the design of the jaguar in your 3D program using your ZBrush, turn it into an STL and just send it to them. And then they can incorporate it into whatever program they're using and add in all the settings that they're going to need for eyes or rubies for eyes or whatever it is that needs to go in. So yeah, absolutely. It's a different sort of a way of working. Jewelers don't actually have to know how to do a lot of the more complex shapes. They just go and talk to someone who does, and you do it as piecework. It's like subcontracting. Well,
and you're that someone, Kahni. So if anyone out there needs your help, you're ready and able. Yeah.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, Kahni, I'm sure that's been of help to a lot of people this morning and in the future. So thank you once again for your participation, and we'll look forward to seeing you sometime again real soon.
No problem. And remember, guys, if you've got any questions, you can contact me through the AJS detailing page, which Peter's going to have all my details there. So if you've got a question which hasn't been answered through here, just get in contact for either me or Peter, and we'll sort you out. It's all good.
Great. Thanks very much, Hamish, Megan, and Gail for your comments, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.